Good morning. I'm Barry Liebert, and we're here from Harvard Business Review's Boston's office. And today we're going to talk about the missing ingredient in leadership. And this is really an important conversation because we've seen a lot of research about the fact that leadership is somehow missing the boat. In fact, lots of leadership programs are missing their main agenda. Today, 75% of all leadership programs are failing. Now the question is why? And what can we do about it, given we know statistically more than 80% of people don't enjoy their job? Now, despite all the great research done about leadership and management, obviously something's not working well when most people don't enjoy their job and most people aren't being led well. And I think there's a major missing ingredient. I'm Barry Liebert. I'm the author of The Network Imperative. And we're going to talk about what that missing ingredient is and how we're going to fix it. So let's talk about something really important today. The 5 digital truths. They're incontrovertible if you think about it in today's digital world, especially in the world of platforms and networks like Uber and Airbnb. So number 1, leadership. Now, I think the word leadership is already got the wrong word. It's a fallacy. It's not about me leading you or me being a better leader or me being a better manager. It's not about what I call the C's, competencies and clarity and communication. Those things don't work anymore because in today's digital world, it's about not them being the leader, not your board being the leader or your CEO being the leader or your manager being the leader. It's about you being a leader. It's about you leading yourself. And that's a big difference from where we've come from. You are now your own leader in the digital world where you are now in control. Number 2, organizational design, another fallacy of today's society. If you think about it, we're living in the gig world. About 30% of the world's employees are gig professionals. Yet we still think about organizational design as if everybody works for me, an old white guy. I don't really think it's true, but that's the way you see it, all the pictures of all the organizations, old white guys, OWGs, leading organizations. But, and I really mean but, Mark Zuckerberg ain't an old white guy, and neither are most of his peers. So today, the concept of the firm has given way to the concept of a network. The Uber network, the Airbnb network, the Upwork network, where the network is the center of the universe, not the firm. Important distinction. So once again, the second reason why leadership and management is failing in today's world. The third thing is capital. Now, we all think of the word capital being money, maybe even things, but that's not right. Today, non-things, you, me, who we know, our friends, what we know, how we think about our feelings, our emotions, those, I hate to say those non-things, they're called intangibles. Where they're the most valuable things today. In fact, they're the most valuable non-things today. Let me give you the statistics. About 30 years ago, approximately, things, money, and assets were worth about 80% of the global value of the world. Today, that number's dropped down to about 15%. There's been a complete reversal in fortune. And today, you, me, and what we know and who we know, think Facebook, think Twitter, think LinkedIn, those immensely valuable organizations are based on non-things, non-money, non-assets. So today, you and I constitute today's sources of capital. And because you can't buy me and I can't buy you, what's really critical is access, not assets. I'm not for sale, neither are you. What you have is who you know, and what you do. And that's critically important than this building we live in or use, or even the cars, think Zipcar. It's the access to assets that matter, not the ownership of them. Again, another reason why today's leadership and management styles and techniques don't work. Last, skills. Well, I always love all the C competencies: collaboration, communication, co-creation, you name it, curation. Cool words of C's. They all matter a lot in today's world, but they don't really count for very much. What really matters today is you are in charge of your whole self, the sources of capital. And that means you have access to your knowledge, you have access to your friends, you have access to your money. And that gives you the ability for the first time to manage your full self wholly. Now, this is really important about thinking of yourself as a whole human being. When I grew up, right, a long time ago, I thought of myself as being what I did or what I had. But today, that doesn't define me at all. Today, I'm defined by my relationships, by my friendships, by my knowledge, and by my relationships. None of those things are defined as traditionally capital or assets, but yet they're all part of my portfolio of well-being. And therefore, today, I need to have a new competency, which is capital. I need to think of myself in a new, more complete way in which I have the skills to allocate across all of my sources of value. Remember, I'm the center now of my own source of value. I am no longer managed by somebody or led by somebody. And to that degree, I'm my own capital allocator, a brand new competency no one teaches. I know how to allocate my stocks or my bonds, but how do I spend my time and my effort on the things that are available to me? And that leads me to something really important. Reactive versus strategic, right? Really important. Most people, of course, they've never been trained in this. And this is the leading missing ingredient in today's skill set is how do I become proactive in the development of myself in today's world where I'm the center of my own universe. And then I need the tools. So let's just show some examples. Now, we all know what this guy looks like. I bet you have some of those guys in your board. I bet you've seen him around this place. We've even seen him run for different countries and companies as president. And you see today's world, these new young professionals, the millennials who are saying, I need to be in control of myself. You see the firm, the historical hierarchy where you have managers and layers and levels, and we're all teaching them how to be better managers and leaders. Cool, very cool, works in my old day, doesn't work so well where the network is fully empowered today to be in charge of itself, where I'm responsible for my own earnings, my own living, and my own health care. Uber, great one. From assets, remember, we're all sitting here, right here in Boston, Massachusetts. There's cars parked in parking garages. They're sitting there right now, but they're not being used. They're not being utilized. So in the future, as we start seeing robotic cars, and I can lease my car like I can lease my home in Airbnb, those assets are accessible to anybody and everybody, which means I can now create sources of value. My car's sitting there right now. It will be on demand for somebody else to use. That means I can create a source of revenues, a source of income to support my family when my knowledge, my cars, my home is not being used. Once again, I need to think of myself as a whole person, making those assets available. Warren Buffett. Now, he's obviously an older white guy than I am, and he's a lot wealthier than I am. But at least he got it right back a long time ago. The missing ingredient for all CEOs and for all leaders, because remember, we are our own leaders today, is capital allocation. And what he said is, leaders are like master violinists. They grow up being taught how to play a specific instrument. Then, all of a sudden, if they're spectacular, they join the New York Symphony Orchestra. And the first job they get is to be Janet Yellen, today's Federal Reserve chief. That means they need to be a capital allocator in all the assets that they have themselves. But he doesn't look like Janet Yellen. He looks like an old white guy. And yet today everybody needs to basically be in a position to be like Janet Yellen, thinking about what's in their own personal Federal Reserve to make a difference. And then reactive versus strategic. Well, there was a time that Encyclopedia Britannica was a really good place to get all your knowledge, to now it's Wikipedia. And then from no capabilities to some. So let's turn to a real exercise. And if there's any questions, I'll take them. No questions yet. How do you do this? Okay. There are 4 types of leadership styles in the missing ingredient universe. One is a reactor. You don't really understand that you can just spend all of your time reacting to the physical assets you have yourself, your car, your house, anything that you have that's physical, and you can be reactive to it. You can fix it up. You can make it better for yourself and your family, and that's valuable, and you're just reactive to it. And that's an important business. And let me give you an example, a different leadership style. That's Brian Dunn. And let me give you an example who Brian Dunn is. Brian Dunn is this gentleman right here. Sorry that all these people are all white guys. This Brian Dunn guy right here was the guy who ran Best Buy. And he said, I'm a store guy. I build and create stores. Now we know Best Buy isn't doing so well versus Amazon. So if you think about it, you yourself can build a store guy. You can be a house guy or a housewoman, and you can decide that's how I'm going to allocate my time. But if you want to be like Jeff Immelt, and let's go back over here again, you could begin to transform the way you think of who you are and what you are. You could begin to think, well, hold on a minute here. I have a car, I have a house, I have assets that I've never thought about that I can use to propel my place in this world. I can do something dramatically different than I've ever done before. I can put my stuff into the world and make that stuff valuable to somebody else. I can be part of the sharing economy and transform it. And if you're someone who's running a business, I can be like Jeff Immelt. I can transform being a manufacturer of jet engines to be a manufacturer of software and important IoTs, which is the Internet of Things, that allows me to transform my local business, my big business, into something where I'm connecting and sharing those things with somebody else. I can do this individually, or I can do it collectively. I can make what I have available to others. That's the second type of leader, of oneself. I can transform my own self into being something different than I thought I was. Now, I can do something much more like Maslow would think about. I can begin to align my full self, everything I have, my heart, my mind, my body, my cars, my things, my knowledge, my friends, my friendships, into something that serves me and that I serve myself. Now, most people don't think this way. How can I guarantee the fact that I am going to be more successful in the world by making who I know and what I know readily available? How do I put my car up on Uber? How do I make my house available on Airbnb? How do I make my knowledge and expertise available on Upwork? How do I become part of this gig environment and become part of the world in which I am a member of the network? How do I do that? I can align myself with today's reality. I don't have to basically object to it or react to it. I can be part of it. I can accept the fact that whether I work for somebody or I work for myself, I can look at everything I have, my physical things, my labor, my insight, or my friendships, and say, wow, I have all these things, and I can align those ingredients with that capability. And then finally, I can even disrupt myself. I can think, wow, I've never even thought about everything. What can I do differently? Alison, there's a question. Yes, there's a question. Yes.
Thank you, everybody. Keep them coming. This one's from Di, and he's asking, do you think leadership trainings fail because everyone has their own leadership style?
So the question is, do we think leadership is dying and failing because everybody has their own leadership style? The answer is absolutely yes. And we're trying to teach leadership around the C's, right? Competency, communication, curation, collaboration. I mean, those are all fantastic C's. We teach it at every school I teach at, but it doesn't acknowledge, thank you very much, questioner, doesn't acknowledge the fact that all of us are our own leaders and we have a right to lead ourselves, and not just lead ourselves, but to lead everything that's valuable to ourselves in the world. We can make what's available to ourselves and to others, which allows us to basically create more value than we've ever created before. And that's true for an organization. My organizations do not believe that they have things that they've never offered to anybody before in a way that you can imagine. GM, right? If you can imagine if they were to make available, or Ford, all the cars they've ever made in the world, and said to the people who own them, would you like to lease your car to somebody else? Wouldn't that be cool? Otherwise, there'd be no Uber, right? If you think about it. And the same thing for Sheridan. If they said, wow, we should really go to every homeowner and see if they want to make their house available, wouldn't that have been a cool experience? So is there another question?
There is another question.
Thank you, Alison.
Yes.
What's the next question?
This one's from Nicoletta, and she's asking, what is the key to capital allocation in the network that we are all moving toward?
Fantastic. So the question there is, what's the key to capital allocation in a network society? And this is really important. So in the old society, in the society I grew up in, capital allocation was to one or maybe two things, to things and money. But in society today, I'm going to call it the business genome, there are really 5 things that you can allocate money to. 1 is money itself. You can invest in stocks or bonds. 2, things, your house, your cars, things. You can allocate money to building new things, right? Furniture, boards, TVs. 3, human capital. You can allocate in your own training, in your own competencies, in the competencies of others. 4, intellectual capital, what you think, right? What you know. Hugely valuable in today's world. That's why we have companies like LinkedIn and Facebook. And finally, who you know, right? Think about the value of today's networks of friends and how valuable it is. I mean, obviously, there would be no way that Facebook would have been created if companies had ever really cared about who we knew. There's just no way. Any other question about this?
Another question.
You are spectacular today.
From Earl, and he's asking, do corporations need in-sync leadership to progress faster? Or can they have various styles and move equally fast towards their goals?
So the question at hand is, do we need today what I'm going to call leadership as a service? I know we know what software as a service is. We even know sometimes what's called platforms as a service or car as a service. Do we now need leaders as a service? The answer is absolutely. We need boards as a service and leaders as a service, which is instantaneous leaders as a service. Because if the average age of a board is my age or older and 91% white, there's a good chance that many of them aren't equipped to deal with today's reality. So getting instantaneous leaders or board members who are equipped, and they're probably in their 20s and 30s, to deal with today's reality is a part of the solution. It's not the only solution. They need to be in balance, like men and women, East and West. So instantaneous, on-demand leadership needs to be part of tomorrow's world, and it needs to start now. Now the question,
Another question. Yes, this is from Jobin, and he's asking, is there a way to improve your networking ability?
So the question at hand is, can you improve your networking ability? The answer is absolutely, again, another missing ingredient of today's leadership skills. If you only think about leadership as me versus you, how do I lead you better? How do I own something better? How do I provide something better? It's all about me versus you. Versus how do I put myself at the center of the network, and how do I think about the business genome again? Things, money, people, insights, and relationships. I can begin for the first time think about you as a whole person and think, what is it that I can do to serve you? What car, what house, what insight, what relationship, what data do you need? And I can begin to use all my sources of capabilities to provide you with that which you need, and that will return to me what I'd like in this world, which is a larger network that allows me to live in a global digital society. Another question.
Another question, and this one's asking, has contemporary society evolved to demand different kinds of leaders? When did the missing ingredient go missing?
Fantastic question. The question is, when did the missing ingredient go missing? Well, I went to business school in 1977. I will tell you they're still teaching leadership the same old way. Now, I would say it went missing in 1993 when my wife asked me, how come guys don't get it? Now, she has to remember something. I'm a guy. And I was wondering why she was asking a guy the question. And the answer was, she was asking me, as a dean of students at Harvard Dental School, why don't guys get that what really is missing at Harvard Dental School was the power of family, the power of friends, the power of these relationships. So I'm going to say it went missing, at least in my life, becoming cognizant of in 1993. But I think the good news is it's at least becoming prevalent, understandable today. You can see businesses for the first time in things like we were talking about before the interview, holacracy, which is we're beginning to realize that today's network and platform society require the missing ingredient, which is we are own networks. We are members of a global network, that the digital truth is that we're all connected in so many shapes and form that we all need to make that missing ingredient the core ingredient, and to basically spend our time and money where there is most valuable to us as individuals. Another question.
Another question. This one's from Missy, and she's asking, how can we cultivate our leadership at an early stage in our career, even when we are not leading a team?
So great question. The question there is, how do we develop our own leadership skills at a young age when we're not leading a team? So remember, here's the core thesis of the missing ingredient for leadership. We are in today's network society. We're at the center of our own networks. You can think about it. You're the center no matter what age of your friends. You're the center of your own knowledge. You're the center of your own relationships. You're the center of your own labor. You're even the center of your own assets, say in a traditional way, and you're the center of your own savings. And you're the center of your own health care. So I think you need to start as soon as possible basically curating, creating your own missing ingredient, which is to know that if you begin to allocate your time and money to those things that make a difference in your life, you will develop yourself into a great leader, and you won't be left like many leaders without the missing ingredient, which is being able to allocate capital to where it's most precious, and it needs to start with you. Last question, another question?
Another question.
Okay.
And this one is asking, what's the one thing a leader can do who already feels they're working at max capacity to improve their skills and value in an organization?
So the question is, in today's world, everybody feels maxed out. And it's an important question, which is then for how they basically develop their missing ingredient when they're already working at their max level. Well, it's important. If you think about almost every company we work with, every company and every board I work with will tell me they're maxed out. But when I ask them a question, are they really maxed out, or is it how they think about it? Are they really maxed out? In fact, do they have people who know somebody who could help out? Like, could they imagine their alumni network providing insights? Could they imagine their customer network providing co-creation skills, giving them new products and new services? Could they imagine, for the first time ever, leasing things that they never imagined, like if GM and Ford had thought about leasing cars versus making more cars in their factories, or if hotel companies had thought about leasing people's homes. There's a ton of excess assets in the world. People are hard to imagine this, but it's true. So in today's world, we really are not as maxed out we imagine. We're only maxed out from the construct that's how we think about being maxed out. The more you think about your network, the more time you will free yourself up and the more capacities you'll have. But you need to think, oh my God, there's all this excess capacity around me. Why shouldn't I tap into it and share what I have with them, and vice versa? Next question.
Another question, actually this is a comment, and this comes from Jared, and he's basically saying, leadership starts with one person believing in you and following you. Is there a difference between being a boss and a leader?
So Jared was basically saying, isn't fellowship the future of leadership? And everybody here knows that's my thesis, that the future of leadership is fellowship. I will find as a complete person how to follow you, to provide you the support you need, not lead you where you need to be lead, but provide you the support that you need to be your own special human being with all the assets you have, things, money, people, relationships, and knowledge. Now here's the fun part. Is there a difference between being a follower in the way I'm talking about, which is fellowship, and being a boss? Well, I think the old construct of me being a boss doesn't really work. Now, here's the example. I have two sons. They're now 29 and 26. I'll never forget when they told me when they were 4 and 7, you're not the boss over me. Now, you might think, well, that's a crazy concept. But at that time, I'm thinking, wow, as they're texting each other under the dining room table, there's something profound here. They're really telling me at a very early age, way before I told my dad, you're not the boss over me. They were saying, you're empowering me, Dad. Stop giving me mixed messages. And I think that's the same thing in business. We've got to stop thinking about these mixed messages. Either we believe that people are able to take care of themselves, or we don't. And obviously, I believe that the more we embrace this new way of leadership, or I'm going to say fellowship, and the more we embrace the missing ingredient, the more we're going to find that people will take care of who they are and what they want to be. Next question.
Another question, this is asking basically about how to network. So the question is, in today's society, having good connections is rather important. How can you do this? How can you do this well?
Okay, so today's question is, in today's society, how do you build connections? Well, the great thing about how to build connections, you have to put yourself out there. And I don't just mean yourself. You could put out your friends, as everybody does. Facebook, I put up my friends every single day. I promote them, right? I have a great story about one of my friends. She lives here locally in Natick, and she had a story in which her house was egged. Really, someone had done some vandalism. Now she has 4.5 million followers. Now, how she did that was, I said to her, Carrie, you need to put yourself out there in the world and tell your story. If you tell your story, you will find people in the world who will want to tell the stage story, the story of being injured. We've all been architecturally injured in some shape or form. And by putting yourself out there, you'll be surprised that in a connected network world with global platforms, people will find something special in you, something special you have, something special you do. So don't just think, gee, I only have one thing to offer, my career. I have lots of things to offer to be everything that I need to be. Next question.
Another question, this one's asking, can you be a leader if you do not have a dominating personality?
Can you be a leader? You should talk to me about this question. Can you be a leader if you don't have a dominating personality? Absolutely. There's a lot of research on the power of introverts today, right? And you don't have to dominate someone to be a leader. Now, obviously, in many companies, this is not going to sit well because most leaders like to dominate somebody. That's the thesis of I lead you, right? That's the problem. When myself and Maureen were sitting here earlier saying leadership, even the word is wrong. It suggests I lead you, I manage you. You don't need to have a dominant personality. You don't have to be me. You don't have to be my size with my vocal cords to be a leader. What you do have to be is, for the first time, sensitized to the world in which we live, that we are going to be global, we are going to be digital. Nationalism and Brexitism is not going to stop this reality. We are becoming closer and closer together, and we're going to learn to share more and more of what we have and who we are in a world in which there's no other alternative. Another question.
We'll take about two more.
Two more questions.
Okay, so this one's from Yang, and she's asking, can you speak to a few key roles in which leadership and management may differ? Can one person perform both roles in an organization?
So the question is there a difference between leadership and management? I think there is a difference. First of all, I really do believe that both leadership and management applies to self, first of all. I need to take care of myself in this role from a healthcare perspective. So I need to be both self-care, which is the leader of healthcare, self-care, self-management, and leadership. I need to be self-led as well. There are skills we're not taught in high school. There are skills that we're not taught when we're junior high school. We're not taught them even in business or in organizations, how to deal with oneself, because we've grown up in a society where someone took care of us. And you can see the anger of what's happening now in the world when no one's there to take care of us anymore. So there's a brand new set of skills that's required. However, saying that, everybody's not going to be a self-care, self-led, self-managed human being overnight. So in today's world, I think leaders are about setting the vision, like I'm doing today. It says that the future is about self and helping people achieve their full self. And managing, more and more, I do think, is about oneself. And as much as we want to manage other people, I always ask all the audiences and all the companies I work with, do you really like being managed by me? And everybody says, no. Well, the answer is no one really likes being managed by anybody. So we all have to get used to the fact that we do want to be self-contained human beings, taking care of ourselves, taking care of our families, and that's part of our future. Next question.
Next question. Robbie's asking, how often should the leader talk to his or her subordinates while managing the team?
So the question is, how often should the leaders talk to their subordinates? Nix that word subordinate. We're not going to have those words anymore. Already by that very nature of lead and subordinate says some terrible things about society. So the question is, how often should leaders talk to their team members? As often as possible. Remember, the missing ingredient in leadership is fellowship. It's about understanding self-care, self-management, self-leadership, and understanding that we all need today's capital allocation skills to know that we are all capable of having lots of things, money, friends, knowledge, and labor. And to be able to see all of those assets as our assets, we're one day going to be charging Google, sorry Google, we're going to charge you Google one day for the fact that we create our own data. We're going to charge Apple one day for us giving them our biometric thumbprint, because it's our thumbprint. We are the people that create tomorrow's world. And it's up to us to fill that missing ingredient. Another question? I thought we were done.
One more question.
Okay, one more question.
All right, so Summit is asking, does leadership style need to change as your organization evolves?
So the question is, does leadership styles have to change as these organizations in the network world have to evolve? The answer is absolutely. Right now, we still live in a firm-centric world where organizations are the hub and spoke of an organization. But we can see the great disruptions taking place as a result of platforms and networks around the world. These virally growing, tremendously valuable organizations are based on the power of networks. And what makes those networks so powerfully is that they allow you to be you and me to be me. For you to have your friends and for me to have my friends. For you to have your cars and your homes and for me to have mine. And for me to share what you have available and for me to have my sharing opportunity for you. So we're going to have to help today's leaders and today's managers stop calling their employees subordinates, let alone employees. We're going to have to bring up everybody to their own ability to have no longer the missing ingredient in leadership, and we're going to have to allow people to find themselves in a flat digital world. I think we're done. I know there's more questions, but I think we've run out of time. Thank you very much. It's Barry Liebert. I'm the co-author of The Network Imperative. I'm here today at Harvard Business Review in Boston, Massachusetts. Thank you so much for dialing in and listening today to the missing ingredient in leadership. I look forward to seeing you again as we look further into how do we bring these skills into the leadership discussion. Have a great day.